Greetings, Patho-India, and happy anniversary for your 15th year. My name is Ed Uthman. I'm a pathologist practicing in the Houston, Texas area. I've been asked to make a few remarks, but I have been given some latitude on what to talk about, and I choose to talk about nature versus nurture. Nature versus nurture. I'd like to share my own experiences with that issue, and then I'd like to see if I can perhaps relate it to some of the things that I've learned about Indian culture from having many friends and acquaintances and colleagues who are immigrants from India to the United States. I was born in 1952 in Nashville, Tennessee, which is in the southeastern part of our country. My parents lived on a family compound, and the family business was there, and it was a furniture shop. My father, Ed Uthman, was an outstanding craftsman, arguably one of the best of his generation. In fact, he built this beautiful desk for me that he gave me as a graduation gift when I finished college in 1974. Everybody involved with the Uthman family had some interest in craftsmanship. There were no medical people in the family that I grew up with. In addition, there were no people that had any qualifications or any particular interest in the natural sciences. I, on the other hand, always had interest in the natural sciences, and I developed an interest in the human body very early on. These anatomic models, the visible man and the visible woman, I'll bet some of you probably had them when you were kids too. I've saved these. They are well over 50 years old. They date from 1959 and 1960. My parents were always very encouraging to me when I expressed an interest in something, and in fact my dad helped me build these models, and he did a beautiful job doing most of the painting of the organs and the blood vessels. It looks very nice. And I think maybe I would have liked to have been a craftsman myself at some point, but I just never really had the talent for it. And I was always drawn back toward the human body, toward the biological sciences. I was introduced to evolution at a very early age, even though I grew up in the Bible Belt, which is notoriously anti-evolution. But my aunt and uncle, Beth and Charles Uthman, gave me this Time Life book, The Wonders of Life on Earth, that's about Darwin and his discoveries. This book is inscribed to me and dated 1960 when I was 8 years old. So I've always wanted to do medicine. I've always wanted to do the biological sciences. My first job was when I was 16. I was a nursing assistant at a small hospital in my hometown. So I've been working in healthcare for over 45 years. I went to college, got a biology degree, went to med school, then pathology training, and I've been practicing pathology ever since. I can't imagine working in any field other than healthcare. Now, what does this have to do with nature versus nurture? Well, it turns out my story is a little different because I was adopted. I was adopted at birth. I was taken straight from the hospital where I was born to my adoptive family's home and grew up and lived there all through my youth before I went out on my own. Under the state law of Tennessee, my native state, at the time the adoption records were sealed, so I could not learn the identity of my birth mother, nor could my birth mother's family know who adopted her baby. So there was absolutely no contact between birth family and adoptive family at all. Things stayed this way throughout most of my life, but in the 1990s, the state of Tennessee changed the law so that adoptees could petition to have their birth records unsealed. I didn't do it at the time because I had other professional and family things to occupy me, but in 2007 I had my records unsealed, and fairly quickly I found my birth mother. And we have developed a very nice and loving relationship ever since. And so I know her and my two half-siblings through her, as well as my cousins. It turns out that my birth mother is a retired registered nurse not only that, but her mother was a registered nurse, and her mother's mother was a nurse, I think probably before they had registered nurses. On her side, I have 3 first cousins. All are women. Of the 3, 2 of them are in healthcare. One is a registered nurse, and the other is a radiologic technologist. I was not able to find my birth father until a few years later, in 2010. But I was able to find him. I found him on Facebook, of all places. I simply matched his name with anyone that I thought looked like me or looked like my son, and in fact I found a gentleman that did, and it turned out to be him. So I've also developed a relationship with him and with siblings and cousins that I have through him. Now, he was not a healthcare professional. He is a retired U.S. Navy officer, but my 2 half-sisters through him, one of them is a registered nurse and the other is a radiologic technologist. Now, it seems to me that the conclusion is inescapable, that I'm a doctor because I was genetically programmed for it. There's no other explanation for me developing an interest in the sciences or the human body or healthcare in particular from my family background. And there's all sorts of reasons to conclude that I got it through my genetic legacy on both sides of the family. So I guess on that debate between nature versus nurture, I think nature probably wins most of the time. So why do I think that this is relevant to Indian culture? Well, it's been my observation that among my friends and their children, among the professional class of Indians, there seems to be very strong pressure for the children to pursue professions in the high income, high prestige group, medicine or law in particular. And I think that's great if the kid has the desire and the talent for it. But that pressure is so strong. Sometimes I wonder, is this a good thing culturally to pressure kids so hard to go into these professions? If their genes didn't shuffle out the same way yours did, they may not really have the talent for what you want them to do. And maybe they could force themselves and by sheer will develop the skills that are necessary. But is it really that the best way to go? I would just question whether or not it wouldn't be better to go with a profession for which you have native talent. And once again, I have nothing but admiration for my colleagues from India, how hard they've worked, coming to a strange country and working in a strange culture, and oftentimes succeeding beyond their or my wildest dreams. But I just wonder if it might not be worthwhile to step back and look and rethink the amount of pressure that Indians put on their young children when it comes time for them to choose an educational track and a profession to train in. So those are my thoughts. Once again, congratulations to Patho-India. It's great to see another centrum of online pathology knowledge developing on the complete opposite side of the world, and I hope that our paths continue to cross in cyberspace, if not in the real world. Congratulations.